Hello, my sober lovelies. Before we dive in, I'm really excited to announce my group coaching program for women is live, and you can join now. So excited for this because let's be real here. Quitting drinking isn't just about saying no to the glass of wine or booze. It's about what comes after. All the fear, the boredom, the late night anxiety, and the stories you've been telling yourself for years. And that's where my Rewired Sober group coaching program for women comes in. It's only $247. I'm being totally transparent on the price. It's for 3 months, and you'll learn how to shift your mindset, build habits that actually stick, and question the core beliefs that have been keeping you stuck, and find healthier ways to deal with that loneliness and that now what feeling. The best part is you don't have to do it alone. We'll have live group coaching sessions weekly, and there'll be a bunch of women walking through it with you. It's not another cookie cutter sobriety program for mommy vloggers. It's neuroscience meets real life, and it's designed for women to help you not just stay sober, but actually feel good living sober. You can join anytime, and I'd love to see you on the inside. So start today, get instant access. The link's in the show notes. Welcome to Rewired Sober, the podcast where we unpack what it really takes to rewire your brain after alcohol. Hi, I'm your host, Kate Vitella, a registered nurse, board certified in mental health and addiction, sober since 2018, and a coach who blends neuroscience, lived experience, and real talk to help women break the shame spiral and rebuild their thinking with tools like journaling, humor, and honest conversation. This isn't surface level sobriety. This is where the healing gets deep, grounded, and unapologetically honest. So let's get into it. Welcome back to Rewired Sober. Today's guest is Dr. Sarah Michaud. She's a friend of mine, but she happens to be a clinical psychologist with 1 million years sober. Just kidding. Over 40 years of sobriety. And we are really excited to bring up a conversation today about the invisible link, although I would argue not so invisible, link between people-pleasing and codependency and drinking. So we are welcoming to the podcast Dr. Sarah Michaud. She is the author of the book Co-Crazy, and she also runs a podcast/YouTube channel called Leaving Crazy Town. She's been sober for so long. She's been a clinical psychologist for decades, and I'm really excited to jump into her wisdom and her sense of humor here. So welcome, Dr. Sarah.
Hey, thank you so much. And I love talking about recovery, and I love talking about codependency recovery. And it's so funny you say that about people pleasing, because I literally was at a meeting several months ago, probably 30 women, and many of them had over 25 years of recovery. And probably 75% of them talked about people pleasing, still people pleasing at over 25 years of recovery. So I am so adamant and dedicated to talk to women about their codependency because the word has lost its power. Nobody even knows what it means anymore. But it is a really disempowering part of how we are in relationship with other people. So I could go on and on. You ask me some questions or however you want to do this. I mean, yeah.
I love that. It wasn't until I started coaching that I realized that codependency, people-pleasing, fawning, all of those aspects of, particularly for women, are so incredibly huge in addiction and recovery. So many women, they get into this cycle of people-pleasing and then resenting and then drinking, and you throw in some martyrdom and
Right.
and we've sort of been conditioned to do this as women. I mean, I'm a big feminist. I'm going to always talk about how it's our
Yep.
survival strategy for women. But you're right. This word codependency is not getting the buzz that it deserves. So I think a lot of us have it wrong about what codependency is and what it isn't. And so I would
Right.
just like your professional take on how do you describe codependency?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give a tiny bit of kind of the evolution because I think it's important. So back in the 50s and, when Bill W. and Lois were around with AA and she created Al-Anon, it was basically a female codependent married to a male alcoholic. That's
Yeah,
where it all started, right?
the old days.
Yes, in the old days, and it was all about how women are focused on the husband and getting them sober, and they can't do it, and they get really controlling and frustrated, and really Al-Anon started and was all about it's not about getting the people sober, which people complicate all the time. Many people I've heard go, "Well, I went to Al-Anon, but they don't tell me how to get the person sober." And that's, of course, not what it is about at all.
Yeah.
It's about keeping the focus on us, right? So then in the 80s and the 90s, we had the ACOA movement and, the adult children movement and the Codependency Anonymous, and all these books came out, and Codependent No More came out. And it started transitioning to, wow, I can be codependent, not necessarily in a relationship with an addict, pretty much with anyone. And
Yes.
the core definition is really I'm more focused on someone else's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors than mine. And my self esteem is in the hands of someone else.
Yeah.
And so my entire being is how I'm trying to manage my external world to feel okay. So it's basically externally focused rather than internally focused, which is a complete losing game because relationships we're in, partners we have, children we have, parents we have, their moods and opinions are changing all the time. So we can't get our self esteem and our viewpoint about us from others, right? So, when I did a group, the title of the group was Coming Home to Ourselves. And it's really about getting to know, and this is gonna sound crazy, our mantra in the group says, "What do I want? What do I need? What do I want? What do I need?" And if you ask a woman, I've been in therapy sessions with couples, and I'll ask the woman, "What do you want? What do you need?" And they'll tell me what their husband wants and needs.
Yeah.
They're so detached from what they really want and need, they, first of all, can't even identify a need. So it's a focus on others rather than you. And you said it. What happens is if I'm taking care of someone else or focus on changing them or controlling them or wishing they were different, manipulating them, whatever, then I'm not knowing what's happening with me. And the core of codependent behaviors, and we can get into what those are, is fear. So I'm afraid what someone else is gonna think of me or do or have a behavior when they're with me. So I need to behave in a way to control that. So I'm not coming from what I want or who I am or what I think or what I feel. I'm coming from how is the world gonna respond to me? And that's again just a losing game.
It's a losing fucking game.
Yeah, it's a losing game. And the last thing I'll say is this, and I'll get into this later, is, I crashed and burned with codependency when my husband relapsed. He had 15 years of sobriety. I was working with 30 clients a week. I was a specialist in addiction. I had been to Al Anon for 20 years, and my life became an absolute shit show. And I thought to myself, if I have a PhD in addiction, in psychology, I've gone to Al Anon for 20 years. I'm a professional therapist and I've been sober and I can't figure this out. Then how is the average person navigating this? So that's why I ended up writing the book in the early 2000s because about my experience in the early 2000s. because it was not easy. Your entire life blows up. And of course, there are extremes, right? You could be in a relationship with an addict who's relapsing, or you could just be a new mother that's fearful of the baby's behavior and be controlling towards the baby. I mean, it's on a continuum, right? And it depends about your history. And codependent behaviors always play out, obviously, in relationships. That's where it is. And for women in recovery, and I would say men in recovery also, relationships are where all our childhood stuff plays out. It's like the petri dish for our childhood trauma. So, yeah.
Well, I'm really glad you brought up this old adage of like codependency is, what we address in Al Anon, because that was like historically what people thought of is, oh, my partner is an addict and therefore there's where the word comes in. But
Yes.
when we really look at it, it's trying to control the people's perspective of us. And I love that you zeroed in on the word fear because
Yes.
I see that also so much in working with clients is fear of what other people think, fear of disappointing people, fear of
Yes.
letting people down, fear
Yes.
of the optics of their womaning and wifing and mothering, and fear, fear, fear.
Fear.
And then, of course, we try to control. And I mean, that's another address in hell.
Absolutely, it is. And the thing is, like you said earlier, the problem with codependent behavior is it doesn't work for either person. It doesn't work for me if I'm the codependent because I'm not being who I really want to be. And I can give you examples in my present relationship or with my child. When I'm fearful and trying to manage a situation, I'm not happy and I'm not being myself. And the other person doesn't wanna be controlled. They don't wanna be told what to do. They don't wanna be manipulated or, you know, it happens in my present relationship where I've really gotten the experience because he can be codependent, what it's like to be with someone and how kind of annoying and infantilizing someone who's codependent is toward say I haven't eaten dinner or something. Now, I've been living alone for 10 years, okay? And he'll be saying, "Have you eaten? Have you eaten anything? Have you?" And I'll be like, yeah, I can figure it out, but the fear of the partner for like, is your partner okay? And I've gotta manage it when they've been fine way before they met you. Do you know what I mean? But again, we talk about it and I'm like, what's happening for you? And really what's happening for him goes way back. So that's the other piece about codependency and the fear, which I think we should talk about, which is great is I do this sheet, which I should send to you called the activation sheet. And it's really about when we can notice what's happening where we get into some codependent behavior, say we shut down completely, or we start talking and managing, or we get into manipulation, or we start people pleasing, or we fawn or freeze or whatever our thing is. Or we could start screaming at someone. Believe me, there's many presentations of codependency behavior. When we start doing that, the question is, what's happening for me? What am I afraid of? That's the first step. And like you described, it's not fears like spiders or dogs or heights or whatever. It's interpersonal fears. Fear of what you think of me, fear of you abandoning me, fear of you not loving me anymore, fear of you rejecting me, fear of you not thinking I'm attractive enough, fear of, you getting mad at me. So there are all these interpersonal fears that are gonna get activated. This is the thing though, it's not about the present moment. Right? So the fear that gets activated is about the past, of course, and this is simplistic, but typically mother father stuff, early childhood. So, say I'm with my partner and I'm afraid to say something to him to ask for a need to be met because I'm afraid he's going to get mad at me. Okay. That belief is from my father. It's got nothing to do with my partner. My partner doesn't act that way. but the fear is there in the present relationship. So one of the earliest tools, the first tools, is to start noticing in your relationships, can I speak up? And I've had women say, of course I speak up. Say my mind. No. Can you speak the truth? Can you really ask for what you want? Or do you not say exactly what you want because you're afraid of what they're going to do or respond? That is where, God, the most debilitating part of codependency manifests because I think I'm a great communicator. But at times, I notice I get frozen and I think, what's wrong with me that I can't speak up to him? He's perfectly fine. He's never gotten angry about anything I've asked for. So it's all what we bring to the relationship from the past based on fear. So a lot of times I'll say, what does this remind me of? And that's actually an old couples tool too from Harville Hendricks's couples therapy. I don't know if they've written books and it's like you say to yourself, what does this remind me of? What does the feeling I'm having remind me of? And usually it's an earlier incident where I was frozen and I couldn't speak up that has nothing to do with the present. And then it's figuring out new tools to, get better at that skill.
You emphasize awareness that it's happening, right?
Yes.
Noticing, and what's your behavior? Do you shut down? Do you people please? Do you manage fawn? I do all
Yes.
that. And
Yes.
then where does that come from? And
Yes.
and is it as simple as saying it comes from my mom or my dad or my childhood? I mean,
It is. I mean,
is it really?
I've been a therapist for so long and I'm actually in a course right now on Wednesday nights about, deregulating the nervous system and all that, which is fine. But it's like, it all comes back to the same old stuff. It's like we have these experiences. Our systems react in a certain way. Our bodies react in a certain way. We make up certain things in our
Yeah.
head and we have certain feeling experiences simplistically said. Then we have certain behaviors out of that. Most of those literally are created in the first 10 years of your life. So those things are now, it's like a seminar once said, basically what most human beings do is they take their past, they lob it into their future, and they're living into their past over and over again. Because unless you have the awareness that, oh my God, I'm doing a people pleasing behavior right now because I can't ask for what I need. If you don't have that awareness, you're just doing it. And you'll do it till the day you die. Unless some crisis occurs, usually in a relationship. That's when women usually come to therapy, when a crisis occurs in a relationship, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
At least for me over the years. I mean, obviously, women getting sober, and then there'll be a crisis in the relationship. Yeah. Or there's been a crisis in the relationship and they're drinking a lot because of it. And yeah, I mean, I think the codependency to me happens way before the addiction, right? Because if we're shut down or we can identify our feeling states or we're crippled by fear or resentment or shame, that's going to happen way before we pick up the drink. The drink's just going to medicate all that. So
Yeah.
I mean, relationship paradigms and patterns develop way before the drink happens. And most of us didn't develop in a family where, we were asked about our feelings and validated and taught about this stuff. I mean, most of us weren't. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a tendency to shut down as my coping strategy. It's so funny. I'm sitting here scribbling down notes and like everything you're saying, I'm like, okay, look this up later. Like this is my class, and now I want to ask you about my personal.
Of
I'm like,
course.
Dr. Sarah, help.
No, but shutting down, like, that's a really great one because this is what I do with that one because that's a real automatic physiological thing for me too, the freeze. And it happened last summer, and this is how I cope with it now, is we were at the beach, and we were talking about some topic, and he asked me some direct question, and I started to answer him, and then I don't know if he interrupted me or said something, and immediately I felt it, right? I just, like, literally went internal, and suddenly I start disassociating, I start spacing out, and I literally you have to do is literally get back in your body in the
Get in your
moment.
body.
And
Yeah.
so I literally said to him, I'm starting to I'm starting to disappear right now, and I gotta get back with you because I'm starting to check out. Like, I just named it. And he was great. He can create a container, and as long as you have a safe space for it to come back, and it's hard, it's amazing. It was like a good 5 minutes that I was trying to literally speak because there was so much of like, I'm not safe, I gotta shut down. And eventually I could start speaking and then kind of naming and eventually figured it out. But that shutdown freeze response is a hard one to navigate if you've done it for years and it's kept you safe. But in a relationship, it was so clear that something just got triggered. Again, like you've talked about with clients, like the martyrdom and the blame and all that stuff. When we focus on it's about the other person, we're never gonna recover. Because even if bad stuff happened to you, yeah, a lot of stuff happened to me, you know what I mean? But other people, if we're waiting for other people to change, we're screwed, right?
Yeah.
All we can do is figure out what I can do. Obviously, I have my feelings about a situation. I can work through some resentments, I can process some shame, I can look at why I'm anxious, etc. But it's really now what am I going to do? Am I going to set a boundary? Am I going to speak up? So it's getting your own power back because again, blame is completely disempowering. It's not going to
Yeah.
change anything, right?
This is a lot of what we talk about in my group coaching containers is how to take your own power back. And first things first is being able to name it with, you know, emotional literacy and get
Yes.
granular,
Yes.
name it in a safe space, and
Yes.
then work through what your next move is. And
Yes.
what about when people are automatically triggered to fawn or people please?
Well, it's very similar. I mean, it's just another few degrees to the right from shutting down, right? I learned to do that because my father was a narcissist, right? And I learned very early on how to manipulate him. And how did I manipulate him and get what I wanted? I just gave him all kinds of kudos. I knew how to work him. And it's awful to say in a way, even though I have total compassion for myself because that's how I got what I needed. But yeah, I mean, it's an automatic behavior where we realize, oh, this is going to work to make me safe. So the thing is, eventually it stops working. I mean, when I got sober, I couldn't do that behavior with him anymore because it didn't feel good. It was like,
Yeah, because
oh,
you wanted to punch him in the
yuck.
dick. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Yuck. Yeah. So that's not going to be happening. But, it's realizing I think we only change something when it stops working. And I remember hearing, the Smart List podcast with Will Arnett. He said famously one time, people pleasing never pleases anyone. So, I mean, it's really true because the thing about people pleasing behavior also is it's a lot. This is going to sound harsh. It's a lie in the relationship because you're basically saying you can't tell the truth or be who you want to be in the relationship. You think you have to please the other person, which is inauthentic.
Yeah.
Again, of course, we're going to give and take in a relationship. This is a type of behavior where I'm afraid to be who I am. So I focus on making them happy. That's different. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is disingenuous. I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, all these things, all the codependent kind of behaviors that we learn, that's the thing. They're disingenuous in a relationship. They're not being honest, but we don't even know we're being dishonest. That's the tricky part, right?
yeah, and I like that you mentioned that when you got sober, like, your bullshit barometer has changed, and you actually cannot bring yourself to be that people-pleasing version of you, and that's what I see. We talk about building a life you don't wanna escape from and that those cliched terms.
Yes.
But part of that's breaking out of the fucking cage you built. And so I was hoping you'd kind of elaborate on like the shift of when you get sober and you step back and realize that you're doing all these things.
Yes. Well, I mean, a big sign is you start getting pissed off all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, you know what? I've become a friend to anger. Like, I've learned to
Yeah.
embrace my anger.
Yes. I mean, anger is a good motivator. It's not a good place to stay, but
Yeah.
it's part of a process, absolutely. And so yeah, I mean, I think you notice it by a codependent person might say a person asks them every week, "Gee, can you give me a ride to this meeting? I don't feel like driving." And every week they're like, "Sure, sure." But they never actually stop and think, "Do I want to drive and pick up Joe tonight? I don't feel like it tonight." They don't even think about it until suddenly they notice they're pissed off and they're like, "Why am I so upset?" Geez, maybe you don't want to pick him up. I mean, that's how detached we are from these automatic behaviors that we just, we thought, "Oh, I'm just a nice person." Well, you're being nice if you have a choice about it. That's the distinction. If you actually are doing things automatically, but you're really not choosing them, that's codependency, right? If I think I have to do a behavior or else the person's not going to like me, that's a clear sign. Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing is, like you're saying, I mean, I remember when I first got sober, an incident would happen and I'd feel it 2 weeks later. I mean, literally. You know what I mean? Like, I'd get off the phone with my father and I'd, like, eat a bunch of ice cream or I'd, watch a Netflix movie. Probably Netflix wasn't around back then. I'd watch a movie or do something, and then, like, I'd be in therapy 2 weeks later, and I'd be like, "God, I'm so pissed off at my father." You know what I mean? So, I mean, over time, I think event and feeling gets more lined up. So, just having the feeling experience, like you're saying, identifying the feeling state first, then it's like experiencing it, allowing your body to feel it, and then it's how can I express it? The 3 steps, right? Identify and experience and express. And that's really the first several years of recovery. I mean, you know people that are 20 years sober and still acting out and enraged and not in touch with anything. So, I mean, just because someone's sober doesn't mean they're well. I mean, they
No,
might not be
it
causing a lot
doesn't.
of harm, but I mean, you know what I'm saying, right? And some people will just get more and more angry over time, and that'll be a new identity. So, yeah, it's the beginning is just notice. I always say that, but for addicts to even stop and just notice rather than doing something automatically and we talk about the pause button, pausing so I can actually, there's a lot of tools like if someone calls you up and says, "Hey, can you bring 5 pies for Thanksgiving?" You can always say, "I'm gonna think about it. I'll get back to you tomorrow." Like, just creating space is step number 1. Instead of automatically saying yes or no to everything, which is mainly yes with codependence, is to actually say, "Let me get back to you. I'm gonna take time to think about it." That's a huge, huge step. I used to have a little 3 by 5 card next to my phone just to say, "Don't say yes," like, just pause. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
yeah, and women, I was talking to Amy about this the other day, is I did my dissertation on women's development and then how it was connected to depression. But women develop in connection with others. Men develop in autonomy. They develop to be much more individual than women. There's a bunch of theories about women's development and those studies about, you put 3 boys together, they're all like going crazy, running around. You put 3 little girls together, they're all sitting together talking. I mean, that's just what girls do. It's not a sexism thing, it's part of our development. And so we are much more in touch with and sensitive to other people's responses. And we get very attached because it's our safety. Relationships are our safety. Is that person okay or not okay? And yet the problem is we take it to the next degree, which we think it's our responsibility to make them okay, rather than just, "Hey, seems like you're not okay. What's happening?" And having, I talk about the hula hoops. We're each in separate hula hoops. We're not in the same hula hoop. I'm in mine and I can be a loving space. But if we have a history where we either grew up with mental illness or grew up in alcoholism or felt responsible for our parents' feelings, that's going to be part of our makeup.
I'm so glad you brought up and she's referring to our friend Amy Liz Harrison, who I'll also have on the podcast, who's been sober for over 10 years. And
Yes.
yeah, I mean, these are things we talk about as women. I love hearing about how women sort of co-regulate each other's nervous system and how we develop in connection with each other. And that attributes to, I mean, that can be good or bad, right? That can be
Yes.
harnessed either way.
Yes. Yes.
We heal in groups, we go to the bathroom in groups, um, but we can also become fairly codependent in that sense.
Absolutely. I mean, I haven't done a deep dive I know if you went to an Al Anon meeting, there are way more women than men, typically. There are a lot of male codependents. I think they manifest and present differently. The ones I have known become super controlling, maybe with their partners because they're afraid of abandonment. So that kind of presentation, or they're angry, or they're taking care of someone who's super depressed and they feel responsible for them. So, I mean, similar, but also different. So, yes, I mean, the trouble with the woman thing is also women often bond around problems.
Yes. Yes. I
Yeah.
totally get that.
Yeah. So sometimes there's been books written about this that, you can get really into perpetuate. It's one thing to have someone to listen to you and, you need space to talk about something. Yes. But we all know what it's like to have people in our lives that just it's on forever and you're
Yeah.
not being a good friend. That could be a whole other topic we do. How to speak honestly to a good friend and give
Mhm.
feedback, and not be enabling to their dysfunction, So, yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned that in there are a lot of recovery groups now online, and
Right.
they are, spaces where women can come together and talk about, they're meetups essentially.
Got it.
And we have to be super careful in those spaces. We don't get into this like, okay, your turn to complain. Now it's your turn to complain. Now it's your
Yes.
turn to complain. And then you're going to one up the next lady talking about how all your kids are special needs and your house burned down and your husband got
Right.
employed and your dog died. I mean,
Right.
I love these women's recovery spaces, but that's one thing we have to be careful of, and when I
Yes.
started my group, it was like, "Okay, I'm going to be very intentional that we are going to talk about a solution." I made
Yes.
my group members, start off with something they're celebrating, something that's challenging, and then a commitment as to what they're going to do about it.
Yes.
'Cause there's a place for bitch sessions.
Yeah,
Those
sure.
they totally do, but we don't wanna get stuck there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you need someone that's so much of what therapy is, especially male clients. They've got nobody to witness their pain.
Yeah,
And so oftentimes when male clients would come in, it would be like, I haven't told anybody this. And you're just being a witness. And yet you're right. It can get, if it starts to go into the victim mode, then it's really looking at, hey, what's the resistance to shifting this? Usually it's fear, right? So fear of change, fear of being alone, fear of speaking up. I know plenty of people in unhappy relationships right now. And why? Why, it's not my journey and people stay for all kinds of reasons, but fear of all kinds of things.
yeah,
And it gets uncomfortable before it gets better. And I swear to God, human beings, we have such aversion to being uncomfortable. It's ridiculous. I mean, life is uncomfortable.
yeah.
Not
Yeah,
all
we
the
really
time, but
do.
yeah.
We have this aversion to being uncomfortable, and I love that we're talking about fear because when I read Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, and she talks about fear is boring because it's the exact same fear as everyone else, we all are afraid. We're afraid of everything. And just why do you think fear is like this big skeleton in the not skeleton in the closet, but fear has so much control over us in so many
Well,
ways.
I often say that being a human being and being successful at it is all about how we manage fear. And I mean, from what I've researched, there are two fears we're born with genetically: the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. And that's it. And so there are these reptilian fears, yes, as a human species. But the thing is, when we're young, different stuff happens. I mean, I had a client once who, when he was like in elementary school, he had a bunch of siblings. He came home from school and he was so excited to show his mother this thing he made. And he went running up to her, and she was at the stove and she was busily cooking. And he said, "Mom, mom, mom, I gotta show you this. I gotta show you." And she was so preoccupied with like all that she kind of shooed him away and said, "I can't do that right now." And that moment created a fear of not being loved, a fear of not being good enough, a fear. So, like, we traced a bunch of his fears back to this one moment. And yet, that moment ran his life and his decisions. So that's why the power of like going back, and I always say, when did it start? What happened? Every fear to me has a moment when it started, and a lot can be at the same moment. And yet, if you don't recognize that I'm living out of something that happened 40 years ago, and I'm making decisions today based on and the thing is so crazy about that is his mother didn't mean to hurt him. She was in her own hula hoop, figuring out her own, like, it literally had nothing to do with him. So that's the thing about fear too, is so many of these fears that are developed, a lot of ones I hear with sponsees, the fear of not being belonging. And a lot of the belonging stuff is like, all I have to say is junior high, 8th grade girls, right? I mean, it's like every woman I know in AA has like girlfriend trauma from 8th grade. It's like, so
Great.
this like fear of not being belonging, I'm not good enough, I'm not part of. And yet, how does that manifest? Well, you go to a meeting, a recovery, whatever recovery meeting, and you immediately project, nobody likes me, nobody wants
Yes.
me. And it's like based on fantasy. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. The whole managing our fears and identifying, like, look, a huge part of recovery for me has been from the early days I studied Buddhism. And I don't know why, but the whole idea that thoughts are just thoughts to me was like, that is like 75% of the battle.
Yep.
Because if I know my thoughts are just based on my past, then they're not going to have a lot of weight. And so then it's really about managing my feeling states and figuring out how I can calm my system. And when I don't make stuff up, usually my system isn't in an activation. So, I mean, there are ways we can take care of that, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fears from the past. And I do also have this chart when we talk about anger and rage because a lot of codependent behaviors are about control. And you've met women like this. Just go to an Al-Anon meeting and you'll see a bunch of controlling women. But, you know, like you'll see people that are needing to manage and
Mhm.
they're edgy and angry. And, like, I see that as at the top of a pyramid, say, is rage, and then underneath that is, like, anger, agitation, irritability, PMS, all those kinda edginess, and then below that, sadness, grief, anxiety. Below that, fear, and then below that is really at the bottom of it all is powerlessness, right? It's powerlessness, and human beings, I think, genetically don't like powerlessness. It's a fear trigger and also can activate early childhood stuff because we were powerless a lot. We were counting on these people to take care of us. And they may have done a crappy job even if they tried to do a good job, you know?
Yeah, that's fascinating that it comes down to powerlessness. There's a lot of, I mean, I've been a nurse for 100 years, and there's a lot of research showing that the reason why nurses are mean to each other is this inherent feeling of powerlessness in the structure of a hospital system. Like we're the grunt, we're powerless. With the doctors tell us what to do, management tells us what to do, staffing is shit, and so
Yes.
therefore we take it out on each other, and it's this whole
Yes.
science of
I
yeah, I
bet.
mean, so many interesting overlaps here, and I'm so glad we're having this conversation to bring it to light the stuff that lurks, the need to control, the fear, the powerlessness, all those underlying things, and so thank you so much for coming on and talking I feel like we could talk about this forever, and I'm trying
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, tools tools to start navigating are like, if you can't speak up in your relationship, speak up at the Starbucks when you get the wrong coffee. Like, start practicing in less triggering environment, whether it's self care or speaking up or identifying your feeling states or processing your anger or starting to recognize your fears. Like, take some baby steps. But it's really about getting back in your own body first. If you notice, like, when you're in the house with your partner, if you're way focused on scanning what they're doing, say to yourself, I'm not responsible for what they're doing. Just notice, bring yourself back to your own body and your own hula hoop. That's a beginning.
yeah, my mom
Yeah.
always says, "Eyes on self, eyes on
Yeah.
self."
Right.
So and then for our listeners, a lot of people say, "Bring it back to your own body, get back into your own body." What does that mean in real
Right.
time? What does that
Right.
look like?
Well, in the class the other night, they were talking about literally so often we're in our heads or we're focused on someone else. It's literally like feeling your feet on the ground. If you're sitting in that chair, feeling your seat on the couch,
Yep.
it's also getting your eyes kind of adapted to the environment. So I'm sure you've heard this. You pick a couple of things in the room and you name the things in the room. So you get back in your space. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You listen you use your senses, and that's how we get back in our bodies. Because you're right. I mean, I've been in conversations with my sweetheart, and the next thing I know, it's like, "Where have you been for the last 10 minutes?" It's like he's like, "In my head."
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we can tell when someone's not present with us.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Getting back into our body,
Getting
that's a
back in
really
our
important one
bodies.
as well. I
Yeah.
love that. I study the work of Megan Watterson, who's a feminist theologian, and she talks about ascension and really farther up is farther in. And I just
Mm.
remind myself, like, go in. Like,
Yes.
you're trying to look out and up and all over, and you need to
Right.
go in. Um,
Right.
be where your
Right.
feet are.
Right.
Just little things I remind myself of, because I easily
Absolutely.
will get so lost in the sauce of the ether, and you're right,
Yes.
like, there are moments where I'm talking or someone else is talking, and I'm not there.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
Where can people find you if they want to learn more about the work that you're doing?
Yeah. Um,
Podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I have a website, drsarahmichaud.com. There's tons of podcasts on there. You can email me on there. There's information about my book. I send people books. If you can't afford one and you want one, I'd be glad to send you one. And then there's a YouTube channel, Leaving Crazy Town, and we do 10 to 15-minute videos about codependency. And lately, I'm interviewing people. So Veronica Valley that you had on, I just
Oh,
interviewed the other
yeah.
day. And, so just interviewing different authors and different people from podcasts and, trying to broaden I just interviewed Andrea Ashley from ACOA. And, so I'm trying to do more of that because my partner is a full-time lawyer. So he's got a lot going on, and I started thinking, "Wow, I need to do more on my part." So, yeah, so go there, and if you have any questions, just reach out.
I love that, and we'll try to
Yeah.
link that in the show notes. it's all about offering these resources to everybody. I love that Veronica was just on. We're all swimming in the same waters
That's
and
right. That's
trying to
right.
help each other out. So,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
what a great conversation.
That
Hopefully
was a
we
great
can.
conversation. Absolutely. So nice. Thanks for having me, Kate.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hopefully we can do this again because like I said, there's
Absolutely.
so much I could just I'm scribbling. I'm scribbling. Send me your bill for the therapy
Hey,
session.
if you ever want me to be a guest, like, with your group, I'd be glad to come too.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be awesome. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Bye, sweetie.
Thanks for tuning in to Rewired Sober. You can find me on my Instagram at Rewired Sober, where there are links to catch up with me and all the things I'm working on in my coaching business, or the link tree to my business directly will be in the show notes. I so appreciate you joining me on this journey, and I welcome any feedback or any topics you want to hear about, things that you're struggling with or interested in. I love you all so very much, and I'm just so enjoying doing this with you.